These are intelligent black people who, had we protected them and had we put them in an environment or political school that is based on our fundamental core values, we would have had leaders, young leaders right now.
It is the night of the 6th of April 1994, and the aeroplane carrying Rwandan President Juvenal Habyarimana, who is Hutu, has been shot down. Rumors begin to spread through the night that those responsible are the Rwandan Patriotic Front, the RPF, which is made up of mostly Tutsi refugees. The tension between the Hutus and the Tutsis has reached a breaking point, and the assassination of the president has just pushed the country over the edge. Fueled by historical ethnic power struggles, the Catholic Church's manipulation of cultural differences, and German colonial policies of eugenics that declared that the Hutus and the Tutsis were not only just different tribes, but they were entirely different races to each other, and eventually races that would believe that they could not coexist. In 1990, there had been large imports of agricultural tools such as machetes, what we call pangas, and many of them were given to small, badly trained groups of Hutu militia. The radio station RTLM, which has been broadcasting propaganda against the Tutsis, has just put out a call for all the militia to, quote, do their work. In one broadcast, a message said someone must make them disappear for good, to wipe them from human memory, to exterminate the Tutsis from the face of the earth. By the morning, there are roadblocks everywhere made up of Hutu soldiers and militia. They are checking everyone's IDs. Those who are found to be Tutsi are slaughtered on the spot. Gangs of militia are moving from village to village and hacking to death anyone who is believed to be Tutsi. In the more isolated rural areas where there is no military presence, Radio RTML commands ordinary citizens to carry out the killings. But Hutus and Tutsis have been living amongst each other for generations. So this command meant that neighbors turned on neighbors. Hutu husbands had to kill their Tutsi wives for fear of themselves being killed. Many died at the hands of childhood friends. After 100 days, as the red dust of Rwanda settled, over 500,000 ordinary people had been killed. Hundreds of thousands of ordinary people had become murderers. The Rwandan genocide is a heartbreaking example of how identity can be weaponized. But not only that, but how an identity can be constructed and deconstructed. In the previous episode, we spoke about how language affects our relationship with spirituality. But language only forms part of one's identity. It is only one aspect of it. So I want to know, how does our identity, how does our sense of perception of ourselves affect how we navigate our beliefs and how we respond to the world in general? I want to understand specifically how, in the way that we do perceive ourselves, how this manifests in our lives and how it affects the socio-economic challenges that we're facing today, especially as Black South Africans. I spoke to Banele Rewo, who is an entrepreneur, an author, a content creator, and someone who has a particular interest in the psychology behind the township economy. So to get into it, the reason why I wanted to talk to you is that the podcast is generally about spirituality.
Yeah.
But at the same time, spirituality is attached to identity, right?
True.
In some ways, you can't even separate the two. And what I realize is that sometimes the issue that we're facing, especially when you talk about Black people in general, the issue is not a spirituality issue. It's not me and my relationship with spirituality. It's me and everyone else going through the same thing. So I have this. So I think a lot of the time when we're going through something as a collective, it stops necessarily being an individual spiritual experience, and it becomes an issue of a collective. And once and not even subconsciously, it's like we're all going through something as a people, and we can tell. So now I want.
No one is pointing at it.
So but the way we are taught in the world, it's sort of, when you talk about spirituality, it's all about me, it's me alone, or you know what I mean. So where I want to start now, because most of the people that I talk to are healers, are people who have a background in healing. Abantu abatwasi.
True.
So I don't need to do a background on that. So with you, I want to do a background in that you have a background in business, and which started with creative business. So can you sort of take us briefly through your professional background?
Okay. Right. My professional background is starting off as a creative. It was a matter of when you watch TV, it starts there, man. You watch TV and then you see what there is some representation that is happening, but you don't quite understand because I was young, right? So manje, I was like, you know what, I really want to make adverts, that's what I wanted to do. I just wanted to make adverts. But I saw something else. I saw Guti. The adverts were not the Java as abantu, and they sort of
anything.
The same. And I wanted to tell a story, So and then I went and got into advertising, copywriting, and at the time I'm inspired by Ufistes Musongwame, and then he does this advert where he takes Black people outside of Ilogishi, Ubafaka Esabapu Tata Abelungu.
I remember the SABC one.
And that changed my life, dude.
I remember that.
When I saw that advert, and then I saw him being interviewed, Asha is sport, and you know which I'm always wearing sport. I saw someone that was like me, because I thought someone who came up with that was probably white or some genius or whatever it is. He out. And then from there that warped my identity in creativity, because what I did was I sort of formulated myself, which I can't be who I am. I can't be a proper Black person. I don't have to listen to or watch Isn't This Fun about Friends or Seinfeld or whatnot to be creative. And then that started a whole journey. And then so in that journey, a creativity, studying copywriting, studying the advertising industry, and then I realized there's a need for us to actually start our own agencies, and then that sparked that creative, that entrepreneurial journey. Journey manje is too, sharp. So I did that, and then I think I've failed in 11 businesses, if I'm not mistaken, in the last 10 years. 11 businesses, and for a long time it was a point of embarrassment for me. But now it's like, actually this is really great, because I became the person that I am. The person that I am now is a person who is I relate to a lot of Indwana, because I realized that when I was growing up, I had a lot of Amakrokman, Abo Mandla. They were very famous people. Abo Mandla Shalchayo, Dr. Makheu. They literally lived around my street. So I've always had time to speak to them or just in random things, not like deep things. But that created the person that I am today, where I'm like, okay, so man, I'm the person they were to me, but now there's social media and there's a lot going on. There's a lot of a need for this kind of conversations to happen. So now where I am is I create content based on businesses, thanks to all these businesses that I failed in and the ones that have succeeded. And also me being raised and Nkulele Elokshini, being surrounded by Amakrokman who were doing amazing things at the time. I would see them at TV, I would see them at Stratton at the same time. So I became that person. You know, I'm just the result of my environment. Yeah.
In one of the things that you've always spoken about online is that Oledi Lako was an atheist.
Yeah, true.
Why do you believe that contributed to your personal identity or how you perceive yourself?
Oledi, I need to be raised by a single parent.
Yeah.
So being raised by a single parent, umama is your God.
Yeah.
You know, when you start. And then I think Maglibele Kamiskati, she would tell me these weird stories which no, menanganga esonteni so, and then ngabona ini, you know. And then I think at the time she was not taking it seriously what she was telling me. She was just saying it out of jest or just ukhuluma nje. But Maglibele Kamiskati actually realized what she was doing was that she did not want ukuthi angifundise into yena angayazi, right? So she grew up an orphan. So she's a person that believed in hard work. So in her head, for you to get results, because that's how basically her life turned out. So she taught me that, look, if ufuna izinto zenzeke, this is what you need to do, which is practically.
Because there's no one coming.
There's no one coming. But Maglibele Kamiskati, in this fun ukuthi iBhayibheli endlini mogena iBhayibheli until I was like 15 or 16. And then akona ilishiwa umuntu. It was a very small Bible,
the
Testament.
blue one.
The blue one.
Yeah, the blue one. I know that one.
You know, so we had that, and the only thing that we prayed for endlini was we prayed for Rogul. Every time before we ate, she would teach us to pray. So it was all practical. And then ezinye izinto Maglibele Kamiskati is yena zange abe umuntu wesonto meke esho ukuthi she thinks ukuthi isonto nama politics esontweni abantu basesontweni masile.
Yeah. There's always politics.
Yeah. But she grew older and older, and then she started going to church. And then khona lapho nje wayeka, because I think she's been finding it's one of those things that she doesn't tell me, which that's pushing her. And it's more than just the politics in the church, it's more than just society, it's more than just feeling. I think spiritually that, you know, so she didn't push me towards isonto because I think she wanted me to figure it out myself. Culturally, what do we need to do? I was like, beggar. You have a choice. Mina angenzi nix into engiyenzayo ngiyachela and ngishisa impepho. That's what I do. And if you want to investigate what will work for you, ungazenza lezo zinto lezo, but be careful ukuthi la kwami, and I set the boundaries ukuthi what happens la HRD. So if you want to do them, zenze kwakho, whatever it is that you want to do.
You know what's interesting about that is it speaks a lot on the evolution of identity, personal identity, which is something that I want to get into deeper. And in that, we as a people have evolved and by people I mean Black South Africans, especially in how we perceive ourselves. So how do you think, in your experience and your observations, how do you think we have our understanding of ourselves has changed, maybe let's say before 94 and after 94? Because it almost feels like before 94 we were a certain kind of person as people, and then now we are a certain kind of person. And there's a difference. Like, what in your observation, what do you think is the difference? What has happened in that period?
Around about your 96 and 95s, I was 10, 12. I watched a show at the time, Bogu Felicia Mabuza and Abutali Tambo at the time. They were what you call like snobs, you know, coming from the USA or having learned in the USA or whatever it is.
The accents
and whatnot. And those people were shoved down our throats after 94. They said, this is the new black. This is the black, right? Before that, before 94, literally before 94, there was a collective, I think there was a collective agreement to which we know who the enemy is and we know what the problem is. And savumelana sonke ukuthi nayi enemy. So even when you come from a different cultural background in terms of language or in terms of ethnicity or whatever it is, besivumelene nje ukuthi khona inkinga and inkinga ilo muntu omhlophe. Savumelana, and then we were able to fight, yabo sayiwina lento leyo. But after 94 kwaba ukuthi khona amavarara, khona the unsophisticated black people, and now there's sophisticated black people. So now that's where uthola vele like your Felicias and your Dali Tambos manje bayangena there. I remember one time they were talking about ilobolo, which is it ilobolo is buying a wife. And there was a very big topic, I think, for 10 years. Now
it still
pick it up.
No, it still is.
You know what I mean? But the words that they used, the words that they used, they did not come from the words that we'd use now. Manje we're able to say, no, ilobolo is gratitude. Ilobolo is demonstrating ukuthi wena as a man you've worked and now you can afford.
It's symbolism.
It's symbolism. But we can say those things, manje. Then if you said those things, you would have been unsophisticated. You'd be just like a black nje that's supposed to die in the rurals or you know what I mean? So lapho ku 94, I'm making an example ngendaba ka Felicia Mauza, because at the time we were molded. It was a campaign. It was a deliberate campaign to change our mindsets, because we had to fit into the rainbow nation. So now we were torn from our identity le ebesivumelane ngayo before 94, because after 94 is like, no, there's separate blacks. Ubone manje what is happening literally today. Uzothola ukuthi kunabodaki abahlala ema-suburb, right? And then njoba hlala ema-suburb is like, as mina ne, if the only thing I just want my family and household to work, just nje mina as Banele, ngiyezwa ngiyakhuluma kune load shedding, ngiyezwa ngiyakhuluma ukuthi elokishini abonhlanhla bagijimisana nama Zimbabwean, but that is something that is far away from me. So there's a kind of black manje law who is saying, I'm trying to be as successful as possible so that these issues do not affect me. So those are the kind of people that we're dealing with manje. So uzothola kunomuntu oselokishini, there's a black waselokishini, there's a black waseplazini, there's a black wase Joburg South, there's a black in North. Uyabona ukuthi manje sokunabo black abaningi, and kubo wonke labo black laba, everyone is trying to find themselves in a space where they do not identify with the rest of us. So asina we don't have that ideal like there's nothing esihlanganisayo anymore ukuthi beyiwana. At some point it was ANC, at some point it was just a white person, but manje what is it?
Is that particularly a problem? Is it wrong for there to be a diversification of identity of a single people?
It is not wrong, because I need to say as wrong or wrong is subjective, right?
Yeah.
But is it destructive? 100% it is. It is very destructive, because one time a guy was talking about Uguti, why is it that you find Pakistan Merakona Lana in the country? They tend to eat their own food, they band together, they economies of scale, group economics. And then Wine's example Amachuta, they always laugh. Mandia, and then they said Tina, as black men, footy, as we're not doing that. And I made an example. I'm like, if Sahamba manje Samba social Russia, and then in Fiang Tola Navus, Tola Lapano say Russia, I'm probably gonna be drawn to you because you same identity. But the guy, to his credit, he raised an important point. It's like, okay, you're both from South Africa, but maslibele sibabanini, ne? And then we grow like a community. Maybe let's say it's 100.
Yeah.
What religion are we gonna subscribe to? You know what I mean? It was like, okay, well, and then now the importance of a religion, which no man, labantu laba, all of these people, these other they can go anywhere on the planet. Mara lento lezo bahlanganisa. It's more than just ukuthi you're my countrymen. Khona lento ezothi asihlangane every Friday ngo-2. And that's religion. And we don't have that. So which means masingahamba thina saya ngaphandle. We potentially we might be drawn together as a community, but to build a solid community, there's a system of beliefs and system of managing ourselves. We might have a problem. We are taught. So it's destructive. We don't have that in abantu amnyama in like together. We don't have that clue.
On the other side, I can say that we need to be able to disagree, and for that to be fine.
Yeah.
Because now the challenge is that what you're saying, which I fully agree with, or I fully understand, in the sense that there has to be some commonality, right? So now in the process of being diversified, we sort of pride ourselves in our difference. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
For example, if you were to meet someone who's a Christian, they're proud to be a Christian. They you know what I mean? And you will find someone who practices African spirituality. As much as it is growing, when you find a person who practices African spirituality, they'll tell you how proud they are of that. So in getting people to merge or to create a community, you will have to necessarily get rid of the differences.
You will have to get rid of the differences.
Yes.
Okay.
Isn't that what would need to happen? Like we would then need some kind of homogeny, something that will combine all of us into one thing.
Yeah, I believe that. Yeah. That's what I believe. Which even though we're proud to. Even though we could be proud that we are all different, whether by location, but njoba singenayo thina lento lena, which is what I believe ukuthi a podcast like yours lento yenzayo is you are reintroducing in most cases the beauty and the function of the African spirituality. Someone else might be listening and thinking some other thing. Yeah, that's fine. But that's what I get. Like, uyayizwa lento lena ukuthi hayi man khona lento ebishoda ngayo, and it wasn't Christianity, it wasn't Islam, it wasn't anything, it wasn't politics, it wasn't khona lento eshoda ngayo kodwa savumelana ngayo fundamentally ngaphakathi savumelana ngayo. It's just that we call it in different things, makuthiwa fanele standards, kufanele standards, fanele siphahle, fanele senze zonke lezi zinto lezi, and it's ungazuthi ukuthi it's borderline symbolism, it's borderline symbolism, but there's practical use for it ukuthi sidila nabantu manje that are going through a lot of anxieties. Anxiety, whether it's because of work or whether it's because in J life is difficult, escom, whatever it is. But we are born uti. The fact uti you do not have time. Awunasikhathi sokuthi uhlale and asibize sithi you're meditating.
Yeah.
You're just doing breathing exercises. You're not praying. So if sisifaka silahlela African spirituality and its practices, right? Because we're trying to find these things. We're trying to find it. What are the practices? But the practicals, they're very fundamental across all religions. Which you have to at some point sit down and
is that what you think is the glue that works? Because I'll give you an example or the context of what I mean. Especially when you speak of Muslims, it's and I suppose to an extent with Jewish people, in that their religion is the thing, is the glue that keeps them together.
Yes.
So you can almost say that spirituality or religion is a glue. But then when you look at the Western world, religion is on the decline.
100%.
Right. But they are still more or less a sort of united group.
Yes.
Right? So without being facetious, without being snacks in jail, what do you think holds white people together? Let's say white people in this country. What do you think holds them together?
Okay, I think what holds white people together in jail everywhere is they agreed. We are white. They agreed. We are white and we are going to treat each other better because there's a common enemy.
And
they
decided,
they decided in fact, before everyone else is the black, right? They decided we are the enemy. Tina asikavumelani manje ukuthi no man, this is the enemy. Ngoba singiletha manje in the country. Because angithi nge-Rainbow Nation it whitewashed everything.
Yeah.
So manje asavumelana ukuthi no man. Nah, because we're thinking we're together, we're all together. Can't you know? It's not. So what keeps white people together is that identity, because from that identity you get the identity we are white. You understand? It wasn't a mistake to say white and black. It's like you don't get any more a dichotomy. Like it's like that's it. So what holds them together? We are white, and the problem is these black people, right? And then in the places like China, well, it's easy for them. We are all Chinese. India, we are all young tall. And then, but religion, yes, there are pockets of
Islam.
Pockets of that, and you see what they're doing to them. They're sending them to concentration camps,
to brainwashing camps.
Exactly, young tall, because they take in the religion as a very, very, very important. Look, khona into efanele isihlanganise. That is beyond what we are practically dealing with in society through the times. So maybe vumelano to the white, they had that agreement in 1860 or 1700s. They had that agreement. Now manje isasekhona. So the times can change, the economies can change, but the agreement here we are white and here na inkinga. So bona irrelation yabo is in terms for bona is on a decline because it's not working for them anymore. Right? So what's working for them manje is the economies. You understand? That's where it is. That's why they're fighting Russia and all of that. That's why they're fighting your China's and whatnot. It's because now we've moved in terms of warfare. We've moved from what they used to the Crusades. Yeah, we moved from our Crusades. We moved from ukthumela a white pastor ayongena elokishini asebenze laphayana, and then so where they are manje is the economy of the US versus the economy of China and the economy, but basavumelana ukuthi we are white more than anything.
So the glue then would be a need to dominate.
100%. Yeah, yabona when it comes to domination, enye into is Ubuntu is a beautiful thing, right? Ubuntu is a beautiful thing for Tina. You know, we were supposed to use Ubuntu for ourselves, for our own benefit, and create an economy based on Ubuntu for ourselves, unashamedly. But we chose to include everyone
because it doesn't exclude.
Correct. So inkinga ile ukuthi because it doesn't exclude, Ubuntu it did not become the kind of philosophy that we know it should be,
because it's not militant.
It's not militant, young Ton. And you look at the ANC and how it was formed. They wanted inclusion, right? The ANC wanted to be included, did not want to topple.
It wanted a seat at the table.
Correct. This is the political party spectrum. You can then imagine we will not topple anything. You understand? We will not topple anything, because we are born if ANC is a set example of our political our political endeavors, we are born time, man. This is it. Young child, this is it. So we always going to so for us for anything to happen. Whereas we need to topple, and we need to be proud with it. Look, thina singabantu futhi siyinhlanga eziningi futhi thina yabona 11 languages etc, but siyinhlanga eziningi, but we can agree ukuthi as black people base South Africa, this is what we want. Singathukanga, ngiyangithola. Abantu basezim bavumelene nabo ukuthi isinhlanga eningi kodwa la izim sithi. Look at what they're doing to them in terms of the way bafuna sibabone ngakhona ukuthi abantu aba-useless, abantu that burnt their country down. So after lapho it goes into after at a fundamental level is the need for a spiritual agreement. After lapho kuba isivumelana ngokuthi we are black people, we can't
a social agreement.
Funeka. And then from there kuba political, and then after lapho kuba economy. Thina sikafiki la. Young Tom.
Why do you think, in terms of our perception of ourselves, why is it that we struggle so much with leadership? Why is it that we, across the continent, why is it that we are so tolerant of poor leadership in relation to how we perceive ourselves?
I don't think Uguchi, across the continent there are a lot of leaders, right? But those leaders were groomed. They were groomed, whether it's the CIA, whether it's the US, but they were groomed to be the people that hold power. And ungacabanga ukuthi no, it's conspiracy theories and whatnot, but you look at Ramaphosa right now. You look at Ramaphosa, you look at his history. He was groomed ukuthi abe le president ayiyo manje, as someone who is tone deaf to the African plight, the African person's plight in the country. And you also saw it in the Congo, you also saw it in many other parts, right? Where the presidents bakhona, they were groomed and selected, and anyone who was pro-black, your Sankaras, they were toppled and killed. You understand? So manje, where lama leaders la west now, ukhumbule nakhona ukuthi there is a collective trauma, and the way sapaqabula ngakhona engqondweni is that I've seen in Sebenza at an agency where the people, ne? The owners of the agency or whatever, the managers, right? They would give maybe like 3K, but it's a stipend or whatever it is, and then would take it. But why are you taking a stipend? Because it's not an internship. This is a job. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a job. For you, it's a job, and this is a salary. The internship is a stipend. It doesn't matter. It's just, So we take it thinking, I'm take it and then I'll make something of it. Young told. You're on a little 3,000 le. Uzohlanganisa somewhere. But what uhlanganisani? Because uktraveler wako already. So that the reason why ngenza example ukuthi they take advantage ukuthi sizohlanganisa thina ezabantu abamnyama. Give us the minimum that you can. Sizohlanganisa. Yangithola. You find your leaders afana nabo naMaramaphosa. There's load shedding in the country. There's all of these things. We are not rising up because we're thinking he means well. He's a black person. He can't do that for sure. No, there's no way that he can be evil. No, there's no way that he could be taking care of white interests. No ways. Young Todd. As far as we believe, until we get to.
Why do you think we don't want to believe it? With and I'm saying this with any leader, because some people on the Zuma side, Ramaphosa, yes. Why is it that we don't want to believe when that a person has gone astray, like
cognitive dissonance? Say born. We can see it. It's crazy. We can see it. No man, Lomuntulana.
Sisaba, what are we afraid of?
You don't want to be that black who is on the wrong side of history. You don't want to be that black who's going to be ostracized, because abantu bethu can be very vicious in terms of when you're going against the grain. You don't want to. That's why you find Uti when your voice is rising. Had you done this podcast in '94, I'm telling you, like, you would have been insulted so much. Young Todd, you would have been insulted. They're out there, they're saying, hey, no, but there's so many other blacks that are saying, no, when I'm wrong. So, gubangati wrong for you to think differently. Especially if the difference lay, the way that you think is against what white people want us to think.
Do you think we can have an identity outside of white people?
100% we can.
Do we have an identity outside of white people?
We do. I think we do. We do.
Because the reason I say this is to go back to your very first point when you were talking about Abu Felicia and Moses Felicia and that
Dalita
with the mustache. In that, in many ways, our aspirations were white aspirations.
100%.
Right. The things we aspire to, aspire the schools, we aspire the suburbs, the jobs, the everything. And now it seems as though that is how we define black success.
The opposite of
if you can live like
a
white people,
life. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And in many ways, even an average white person, you know what I mean? In an average suburb with an average house, you know what I mean? Like, that is how you have arrived. But we can't separate that from an underlying sense of whiteness. That's why I'm saying that I to a very large extent, I actually don't think that we can have an identity outside of white people, because the top of the food chain for us is white people.
Yeah. Nyaguz. But I think the children that we're raising now, and the fact that we're having these conversations, I think one of my teachers, Gustav for, used to say, "As abantu mebetagiwe, the reason why they sing amaculo esonto is because they umphefumulo uyakhala." I think that is what is happening with us.
Is it?
But as dawanga jwala, sidawe is this whiteness. Umphefumulo uyakhala. It's like, yeah, sharp. You have all of this whiteness. Kodwa khona lento efana yenzeke. You understand? Why is it that the biggest shows right now on TV, they all have to do with spirituality? I mean, even your DJ Spoos right now, he's tilting to that direction. And manje there's a rise yabo ubani umkhulu lo after Babu Credo, the next one.
Who?
It's not Umaponga.
Oh, I was gonna say
no, not Umaponga. Kona lo munye baba
Nzinga.
Nzinga. I think it was a Soweto something.
Yeah. The Kemet Institute.
The Kemet, yeah,
the commission.
Yes. We are born with him. He's arriving like how Jesus arrived when he arrived wherever. Because lenta zangayo, ne? Lenta zangayo. You're on the same mission. You are on the same mission.
Yeah.
Why is it right? Right? They become so important to us, and you don't understand why. You know, you don't understand why am I so drawn to this thing? Because there's something that I've been missing, and we know there's something that has been missing. But in between all of that, the accent damage was it's not gonna be 20 years, it's not gonna be 30 years.
Couple of lifetime.
Yeah, but it is important because if you look at China, right? If you look at China, 30 years ago it was a squalid life basically, but there was a conscious decision and collective agreement again within themselves, which we are going to have a sacrifice for the next 30 years where we're just going to turn our fortunes around as an identity born, and then they're proud of that. Nati, there's a point where we need to get to.
I think I did an episode on that where I dealt with the history of China and what they had to go through. In that there was a conscious, if not necessarily deliberate, effort to deconstruct the country.
Correct.
Right. I think 2 presidents down, they deconstructed the country, and to a point where it's people died because of this process.
Yes, 100%.
Right? I think they had the largest number of people dying from starvation in the history of human. You know what I mean? Millions of people died
100%.
in the process of that.
Yeah.
And the one president handed over to the other one, and I think the one who came before Xi Jinping, he said what in the reconstruction when everything had been destroyed, literally when the country had been destroyed.
Yeah.
He was like, okay, let's start with schools, let's start with education, and then let's start with manufacturing. And one of the things that they
which was sort of borderline slavery.
It was not even borderline. It was, and that's how people were starving. You know, I think at that point, 90% of the population of China were farmers.
Yes.
And you were not even just a farmer; you were a government farmer, because
correct,
all the farms belonged to the government. And another thing that they did was they closed their borders.
Yes.
In terms of outside influences.
Correct.
They said, as soon as next from anyone,
it's fine. Yeah.
Right. We are rebuilding from scratch. But now, Chinese identity now is literally built around the government. Correct. Right. Because we use the Chinese progress and how fast they managed to emerge from, as a good example. But when you look at it, is that China doesn't have an identity. A culture is the government.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? So is that something we can still aspire for, to say that
100%? It's only been what, 28 years between the time where we had agreed who the enemy is and what our identity is. Sabantu abamnyama, right? And we're fighting against these forces. It's only been 30 years in between, 28 years in between, right? Singasabuyela manje. I think manje what is happening with the rise of such platforms, such topics, it's so important. Like it's very important, because if you look at what I'm doing in terms of focusing on the mental health for young men, specifically ababuya ekas, black, right? If I'm doing that, you also doing that, but in a different way, right? Because you are doing this thing without sponsors. You are doing this thing without having to answer to a white person and asking for permission. Can I talk about A, B, C, and D, right? And sorry, that it's unfortunate. We are at the destroying part, now, right? Where the country needs to destroy itself and then for it to rise. So we're at the very beginning of this process. That's why you find if Babu Credo right now was alive right now, he would have much more impact in terms, he would be more accepted now, right? He's talking about something. He's not just a weirdo, right?
Because in the 80s he was a sellout.
He was young told isn't So manje more peguti, but his influence has gone through young told has gone through his stages. No man, there is something about Tina as Africans that is important. Just like as Africans, and then you drill it down to a South African, which comes back to the political state of the country. So I think right now, like I'm saying, it's unfortunate, but we are doing the work, because you probably can't even stop yourself from focusing on the topics that you focus on. You probably can't, and you can't tell why is it that you can't stop. So manje, I think sebenza ngokuthi I'm gonna do a type of job because it's gonna pay, or I'm gonna do a type of job because there is financial benefit to it for me to make it. Manje, it's like I need to. There's something I'm finding and I'm gonna do it. So we need all that energy to transcend to throughout our structures of government all the way up, and then we might potentially see an African government, a proper African government.
To go back to the China example, in how everything was reconstructed, in that it was one person or a group of people. It was the president and the people around him who, well, it started with Chairman Mao, who decided what the Chinese identity is. He decided. He's like, never mind this. And then that's when they started, getting rid of religion, getting rid of that. We need to get rid of religion. We need to get rid of culture. We need to build an identity around progressiveness.
Correct. Yeah.
Right. As a people, to function as a country. Who would get to decide who we are and say we are setting? This is the
standard.
Template. Yeah. This is the template. This is what. Who would be able to decide that, as we agree?
Asma's no. You yourself 5 years ago, you didn't know that you're gonna be sitting here with me talking about this, let alone 2 months ago. We didn't know about Untitled Chapter. We didn't know about Julius Malema. All of these people, we don't know who to ban. But maybe from this conversation, there's a young person who's gonna listen to this. It's like, maybe I'm that person. So Asmas, but we need a hero. Young Tall. That's where we are. We need. I'm looking at what Ogatin is doing there in the Karoo. People are excited about what he's doing. It's beautiful stuff. And then, but it just goes to show, there has to be someone who decides that is going to be their mission, to destroy for us to rebuild. In the 28 years, there were people like Upiko and Sobukwes, right? Where they decided the system is so is so devastating to umuntu that I'm willing to die. Are we willing to die in our generation? Not even. Because we sifuna lama comforts lawa okuhlalisa baba sibe relaxed lapha. I decided to go and join hood politics, township politics. Right? And it's for that. Ngiyabona ukuthi man. If mina I am good with marketing. And there's a candidate. I know this guy. I've known him for a while. You know, for maybe 20 years or. And then he says he wants to go run for councillorship or whatnot. I can use my marketing skills to assist him with angena. And then it worked. I did not foresee that 2 or 3 weeks before he came to me. So as mazi lo muntu lo who's going to come like a chairman Mao for us, like, you know, Hitler. Hitler was a hero to some people, the Germans, right? He was a hero. Good man, wins in the right. So, Tina, we tend to allow other people to have an opinion on what needs to be done.
And do you think the reason for that is because we don't have a common understanding of what our identity is? So there's not enough of us agreeing on one thing.
Yeah, and I think things are going to get worse before they get better. And the reason why they have to get worse is because
they have
to, because we have to be disillusioned. We have to realize what wins in this country, because the Rainbow Nation, the whole thing about the Rainbow Nation, that whole campaign, you think no, it was just on TV. No, that thing was deliberate. Deliberately, the white people deliberately, which know we must be together. We are all friends. How are we all friends when they're still killing people on our farms? How are we? You know. So, nathi fanele kube nalento le that we do deliberate. Akunanto siyenzile deliberately after 94. Nothing. Everything was savumelana ukuthi sabalanda labantu, right? But after lapho we stopped. Because but no, sekufani, we're not fighting anyone anymore. We are born ukuthi Eskom is messing up. Forget Eskom. 22 kids died at a tavern. Teenagers. Yeah. Teenagers died in a tavern. Today, like I said, we don't even have an organization that's set up for that kind of thing. Right? Ikukula, KZN, who jumped up to the plate, gift of the givers. And then private companies said, we do not want to give imali to the government because we want to give it to gift of the givers. So nathi self, we are not organizing on like simple things. You know what's gonna probably happen. You jump a private company like your Avpop is a champela lapha. Eating nyeza lapho ngizongcwaba wonke labantwana la. Yeah, I understand.
Because it wouldn't be that complicated.
Exactly. So when it comes to the identity, I don't like talking about negative things about us. You know, I'm always like talking positive things.
Okay.
And but it's very important ukuthi ngisho this thing ukuthi isilahlekile kakhulu, right? Isilahlekile kakhulu, and these efforts esiwayenzayo right now is only but a drop in the ocean. It's like that story of a man who he's planting a seed, he knows what he's not gonna
sit in the shade.
Correct. That is exactly what we're doing. I would have preferred we live 20-30 years from now where we see the fruits of what we're doing, you know. But khona abantu that gave up their lives during apartheid for us to have this conversation now.
You brought up the deaths of the teenagers, and it caused a whole debate around who's responsible, who's not, why is this happening. But it's something that I want us to talk about, whether it's negative or not, just be frank about it. And it's something that I want to call the cult of lifestyle. In that this generation, call us the 80s, the 70s, or the early 90s, we have built up ubumnandi as a cult.
Yes. Right?
In that we are willing to do so much for lifestyle. And when you go on Instagram, you go on Facebook, generally we are all trying to sell our own moment of lifestyle. We have a masavan on top of our heads, a and maybe that's the more crass side of things, but for me it's not crass, but it's how other people do it. And then you have your other people who are supposedly more sophisticated, who go to your wine farms. They have the shots of the wine, the shots of the dinner. Why is it do we have such a cult? Why we have so much invested in lifestyle more than, I don't know, like something, I don't even know what to say, because I was going to say that why are we not focused on things that are family orientated, more constructive things, but I don't want to make it sound like black people are special taste. But we invest so much into a lifestyle outside of everything, and yes, karma, to extent where now we are miserable because we're not living the lifestyles that we see online.
In 2013, when we wanted to do something, what I mean is, if I felt a strong urge to create something, I would do it, right? Like how you feel now. I really want to create this podcast, and I want to use my money to buy this equipment and do it, right? You and I come from that generation where if we felt which we wanted to do something, we sort of worked, okay, let me put it together and do it, right? Right now, the culture with the young ones, they do something only to sell it to a brand, right? They do it so that a brand can buy it, right? And our brands, they're taking all of these young people and then on their campaigns, right? And then mind you, it's being an influencer is a job, okay? Sharp. That speaks to something else that is happening, right? Because we are being commoditized by these businesses. We can't shy away from it. Because Aksena slavery, right? But there has to be another form of slavery where Tina, we are commodities. We are just a vehicle of taking money and sending it to SAP, taking money and sending it to those cigarette companies. We are like a farm of imali for bona, right? So sorry. So now, when you look at that, and then these huge corporations are the creators of experiences. They dictate Oguti what is cool and what is not cool, and they are targeting young people. We've seen it go on Facebook. We've seen it. TikTok has been accused of something called dark engineering, I think. Dark programming or something like that. So we are being programmed so that we become the future buyers of product. They are
planting those seeds.
They are planting those seeds. This one guy was a Red Bull. Now I had a conversation now, and then he was saying, when he came into the country, he took a Red Bull and then he used a auction, and then bigger for no say pass, and then the people in the country where it's from, they were saying, why are you taking into such a poor place? Like, it doesn't make sense. And then he said, you teach them now to associate with it, elokshini, because it would have been Red Bull would have been a totally Senton type of brand. So by Tata by Iselokshini. So the idea was that to Uti Sizokula, and then but we're gonna recognize it. And then Sakula Vele, we say recognize no Red Bull, my energy drink. This is ours. So they seamlessly integrated us into it. So maskulma isn't like, nah, it's conspiracy. No, it's not. These are deliberate efforts. Your social media influencers, they take deals with alcohol, but they know these people that follow these influencers, they are under 18. They're 16, 18, I think. You're supposed to get onto social media when you're 13, if I'm not mistaken. But from critically that gap between 13 and 16 or 13 and 18, it's 4 years of being constantly bombarded with lifestyle, and this is what it is to be cool. This is what it is to live a fancy life. So we are bonuguti, and those are formative years, those are formative years. Like umuntu change between those years. Akumangazi ke ukuthi why those kids wanted to go to that tavern. Maybe figure lapha tavern, what did they do? They took photos. That's what they did. They wanted to match and portray the same things as portray our influencers. Of course we can't say no, let's blame our influencers pela. No. Just on that section of the discussion, they are pushed by brands, they are pushed deliberately by ama influencers. Look, wena mntwana, you do not have an identity, right? You are a brutal fruit girl.
No, you're a savannah girl.
You are a savannah girl. You understand? So we are born because asinayo this base point. Young Tola, we don't have this grounding, we don't have this foundation. It means we then identify
where
as
something where, for example, in China they would say they ban certain kinds of advertising or certain kind of brands, or where in Muslim countries they would say there's a bottom line. There's a line that we don't cross with advertising. There's a line that, and us as a people, there's a line that we don't cross.
Yeah, Tina, there's no line. There is no
so
line.
That's the issue.
Yeah,
there's no line.
As a saban, ukuthi bazothina abantu. Sisaba ukuthi what will USA say if we were to force African women to wear hijab, for example? Right? We'll say, bazothini, why bavela amehlo kuphela, so Tina asina line. There's a line. We haven't really drawn a line for ourselves. That's why manje we're talking about identity, and in that identity it's so scattered. Because now, when you did that episode about surnames, when you went through how it is, at the end of that episode, what I got from it was like he has decided. That's what I got from it. And it's my surname, my mother's surname, Rewo, right? And that surname is not even hers. She was adopted by a family, Rewo. My father's surname is Uzulu. So officially my surname is Zulu. But it's just, I kept on going with this Rewo surname. But we beg of this thing, identity, from a personal level, number one, it was messed up. From a personal level, usasuka wena uyi, right? And then we find these influences that are coming through, and you know what they're gonna say? They're gonna say, no, allow Coca-Cola to come advertise because they are investing in the country. But these people are doing way more damage, right? In the country itself, they're doing way more damage than if we drew the line and say Tina Sabantu Abanje, and this is what we want.
Yeah, you can't say, we're not at a point where advertiser would say no. That would make
black people angry. Why? We're still dancing today. Today we're still dancing. We're still dancing. There's still adverts where black people are dancing and singing. You understand? So and there is no black rage. Abasabi. What is the bazosabelan? Because if we rise up and say no, this is wrong, but
no one
is
is afraid of the black identity.
Yeah. Abasabi umuntu omnyama because asinaskali. You know, pre-94 we besinaskali. Isikhona iskali. And iskali came from having a common enemy. But manje we're not sure who's the enemy. We're not sure about Ramaphosa. We're not sure about Zuma. We're not sure about anyone. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, look at the DA. The DA, isn't it the second largest party in the country? A party of minorities is the second largest party in the country. That should say something. Young Ton. Uguti. Before we even identify as political parties, we lost that thing of 28 years ago. We lost the agreement. We are black qala before anything. You look at how the DA has always conducted its campaigns, right? But they always brought a black person in front because they wanted us to be in agreement and feel closer to that person. Hammond, the last one, my man. And these are intelligent people. These are intelligent black people who, had we protected them and had we put them in an environment or political school that is based on our fundamental core values, we would have had leaders, young leaders right now, but we don't.
What's happening with black men?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I want that one. I'll speak for young men because I spent a lot of time with young men. Young men, in Pilanesberg, right? In Pilanesberg, there was they had a problem with a mortality rate.
Yeah,
mortality is death.
Yeah,
birth.
Death.
No, the birth one. Yeah, they had the problem which they couldn't.
Infant mortality.
Yeah, right. So they needed to pull up the population that side, Pilanesberg, and then so what they did was the conservationists, they went to
when was it?
In a Kruger.
When was it?
This is in the 90s.
Okay.
And then they went to the Kruger and then they took the bulls that side, the elephant bulls, right? And then they took them to Pilanesberg to mate.
Oh, you're talking about elephants?
Yeah, elephants.
I'm like, Kevin, what's going to happen?
As geese, yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, so the elephants, they took the bulls, my elephant, and then they went to mate that side, and then it was a fantastic result, you know. The elephant population, it rose, right? But that side, they left teenagers. They killed each other. Those elephants, those male elephants, they killed each other because they found out later on the reason why they killed Baba Tate. They removed the bulls very early on, so Zakula's gonna discipline. So Mazingana discipline, they started killing each other, and this is like a real thing, right? So that is happening, Emakas, young talk, where as a man, if I'm a 37-year-old, I'm probably despondent, I'm probably disappointed. I did not make it to the suburb. I'm probably unhappy. Yabo? And if Nshala in my oldhood, right? If I'm in my oldhood, I'm probably pissed off, angry. There's less jobs, there's whatnot, like nyapuza. And angiphuzi because I'm disappointed in myself, I'm depressed, I have anxieties. There's only one outlet, alcohol, and that gives birth to much more other issues. Okay, sharp. So what is happening then to the young? The progressive guy, the one who's able to talk to these guys, the one who's able to show Uguti, you can make better decisions, you know, the one who is able to guide in Tanengan. Where is he? He's in the burbs right now. So what's happening? We vacuum la paya in as chasana as na line. Like the balls have been removed because we're trying to get out of the hood. Skulele corner and basing in a choice. And it's in the footy our the way that the experience ASA location was always to move. Even the one day we talked about it, that white identity, right? So sapuma ngempela sapuma, right? Now we're here, and then in analyze nazla. What are they doing? Gungena abantu that are there to make money, similar to your Coca-Colas or your SAPs, but bona baphethe nyawope. They're giving these kids in nyawope. Intwana iyahamba epatini. Ifike epatini, yablonywa, yaphuzwa, whatnot, and then but I know sniff this thing. It makes the experience a whole lot more better. You and I, when we went to parties, the most that you can do was probably mix uchwala and weed. Like if you had weed, you were like, yo. And that was
cocaine.
It was cocaine. It was yo now, drug addict. And that was what was available at the time. And then every other thing was expensive and it was in the north. So now Inyaope is infiltrating Ilogish. It's bad news. You know? And so it finds Umuntu that is discouraged because of everything that is going on in the country. Right? Unemployment, basically all of these anxieties that you get from watching social media too much. We get that. There's that. There's broken family homes. Maning lama elements. Ngapha there's some people that seem to be doing so well in life and fairly so. When you look at them, it's like, I'm 13, he's 13, but and they're making a lot of money. You know, so there's a whole lot of bombardment that is happening. And where are they turning to? They're turning to each other and then speaking to each other. I need our circle, the bulls are circle. They're speaking to each other and then they're convincing each other. Okay, I sharp fiti. So now we have these young men that are on drugs, that are drinking, and basically now they're looking for a direction. You understand? Banning that are coming through and asking for direction. But there's a lot more that are saying, I used to be doing this, or that are saying, man, this is what I'm dealing with. I get like a lot of inboxes from young men that are saying, what you talked about, I'm dealing with now.
You speak. You've touched online. You've touched a lot on your own lifestyle change.
Oh yes, yeah.
What do you think are the changes that young men specifically need to make in terms of lifestyle?
Sorry. In terms of lifestyle, young men must first identify. My own lifestyle change only came because I started to appreciate myself. Sounds cheesy. It's like, no, you have to appreciate yourself. Like, what do you mean? You have to appreciate it. Weren't you doing it all your life? No, I wasn't. The reason why I wasn't is,
I'm sure the online they would say that men always put themselves first.
Yeah. But
so you're saying it's not the same?
No, you can put yourself negatively. You can put yourself first negatively, where you just become an unruly person endlini. You know, that's putting yourself first. Like you can have a child, manje. That's putting yourself first. But when you start saying, have gratitude and appreciate yourself, respect, hloniphe wena. You tend to see yourself a bit differently, right? So the young men, out there, akayiboni benefit of say maybe exercise because his body's still functioning properly. Akayiboni, like there's no cause for it. Akayiboni benefit of sticking to studying or sticking to school, except the fact ukuthi bamforced endlini ukuthi ayenze this thing. They say it's good for you, but it doesn't see the outright benefit manje. It doesn't show now. So why is it different then and now? Back then, you knew ukuthi if you go to school, it's going to be 12 years. After 12 years, it's going to be 4 years. After 4 years, it's going to be 3 years, and then you probably be PhD. We had a long term. Right now, the whole narrative is ungayenza manje. So cabanga when you're scared or you're focusing on your thing, maybe you want to do like some chemical biology thing, and then some guy starts a brand of something and then it's blowing up in tanga yako. That's the world.
Not even a brand. Someone just starts a channel.
A channel, yeah.
And they have 2 million subscribers.
Exactly. And you know what they're gonna say? They're gonna be telling this other one, Lofundai, who's doing something that is probably boring, but that thing is important for humanity. Which nah man, stala sakdala less, you know. And then now, when as a young man, you're supposed to navigate that. You're navigating that, and that's outside. That's outside all of these challenges. The ngathi so easy manje ukudivorce man, ngathi so easy to make ingosi and just leave the man, ngathi so easy nje, you understand? And then you have broken family structure, you have all of these influences, it's a mess, akuna direction, you understand? So if uzothi kuye intwana ngithi kuwe yenza a lifestyle change, uzobona ngathi I'm just talking about exercise, but mina now I appreciate it. No, actually this is part of a wholesome a scheme of things. I want to do better as a human being, right? Because I realize if I don't eat, right? I was saying back in the day, if I go to an interview and then I eat, I would eat because being in an interview and then I'm just going to be uncomfortable and whatnot. Now, if I go for a business presentation, for a business meeting, I do not eat because I become sharper when I am mangabing empty siswin. But the pangs are the same. The difference is interpretation. First, I thought Tuguti, I'm hungry, and then I felt sorry for myself. No, I'm hungry. The reason why I'm hungry, I don't have money to buy food and whatnot. But now it's like, no, the more pangs you feel, you're like, yes, then it means there's a lot more blood going to my head than going to my stomach. But it's the same sensation. So it's those things that if I were to tell,
like you're using your body instead
I'm
of
using
your
the
body
body
using you.
exactly. Like I'm using the body. No, the body must understand. I wanted to do something, and I only found this later. If I want to take my bicycle and go 10 kilometers, right now I know the formula. I just need to do for whatever distance that I want, even if it's running, whatever distance I want, I just need to do 1, 2, 3, right? So now that has created the person that I am now. But it's a holistic thing around it. So if ngitshela intwana no ngithi kuwe a gymer, I'm not there yet. Right? I'm not there yet. The most that I've said to them, I was like, if you're dealing with challenges in terms of anxieties in your head, you have this constant voice that keeps telling you to give up on things or whatnot. The best thing is to get out of the house and shy around and walk. Right? Because funding gradually I must, I feel like sometimes my concepts, they just there's just gonna ngizoba bore. It's like, I wanna funa so gym. What's the
there was some, I think it was last year, I don't know what radio station it was. The guy was asking, the topic was hobbies.
Yeah.
And they were saying, guys, Colin,
Yeah.
what do you do?
As a whole, yeah.
And I remember the guy saying in the end, he's like, this is embarrassing. After the whole section of that, he was like, this is actually embarrassing. Because people, all they could say was like, weekend, Majita, Kawashi, and you know. So I realized there's a lot that is missing on an individual basis, whereby it seems like us as men, we can't function alone. Right? There's a sense of I don't have a self identity outside of Mina Namajita.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
And I think that this is a big reason why we are stuck, because I'm stuck because you don't have a solution.
Yeah.
And I'm convinced that me and you are the same person, because we out here.
Yes, 100%.
So now, because I'm trying to get to what is the solution? Like what should happen now for us as a people for there to be a positive change?
Positive change
in
yeah. What you're doing, I respect it so much, right? And you're not the only one. Basically, what you're doing, and it's in fact, it's not about what you are doing. Really, it's not the podcast. It's the why of the podcast, right? It's the why. So the why you're doing it, I respect it, because you signed up yourself, Uti. I want to do this thing because I want to do this thing. It's a calling. You can't. It's a vocation. You can't. Even if you couldn't sleep. If you try and sleep for 3 months, this thing, like you're gonna be agitated. Yeah, you're gonna be agitated, and that's exactly where we need to go back to individually. Yes, there are challenges. Yes, there are kunokusebenza, kunokuphuza, but those are not the only things that are available. Career, you can have a career, and then you can have a job. Each job, when you're talking about editing, is like, editing young boy. That is the job part of this. The conversation part is the vocation part, right? And then after lapo, when it comes to the marketing of izinto zakho, right? That's also a job. You tend not to enjoy the job part of things, but we only just have two: job and the fun part of things. So what we need to do is that we need to for me to do the videos. I grew up in a babies and that thing when you're afraid of like being on people shy
stage
or
fright.
something, stage fright. No, not stage fright, like the video, like photography. I could speak, I could do debates and stuff, but when it comes to photography, because I didn't feel well, I was like overweight and stuff. I didn't, self-conscious and whatnot. But I did a video out of Vangaza. I don't know what I was thinking, and then I did a video, and then it worked out. And it's like, oh shit, that's what people want. And now I grew, and manje, I stopped all of my businesses, right? I stopped all of my businesses that needed me to interact directly nabantu, like your shops, your restaurants, all of those. I stopped all of those businesses, right? Why? Because I felt there were too much of a job for me. What is working for me now is me doing these videos and selling my book. When I talk about my book, when I talk about my thoughts, I'm getting a response from it. So now I took a bet on it. I'm like, okay, let me do something that comes naturally to me. Let me do something that I feel like it is my calling, which is now heal abantu with the way that you do it. Heal them. Because clearly I'm supposed to, it's not healing based, it's teaching, right? So I'm like, okay, let me focus on teaching people. And it has worked well. In a way, well, I'm not rich from it, but it has worked well. It has, I've gained enough income for me not to not to worry ukuthi is this thing going to work, because it feels so natural. So I believe ukuthi sonke as individuals, we need to be able to get to that point where we are doing, nokucabanga ukuthi uMaphorisa no Cabs, nokucabanga ukuthi how would they be if they worked at a call center like right now, ulibele uCabs like phakathi uyazizwa ukuthi uCabs, uyazizwa nje ukuthi hayi mina mfit ngiyashaya number nje, but you go and work on a call center because it pays, and at the time music doesn't pay. So we must release this thing esinazo yathusa futhi yathusa, because you meet yourself laphaya. You meet yourself in a way ukuthi uzozibuza ukuthi are you really the person you think you are? Because if you want to lose weight, you're gonna have to start running. As fat as you are, you're gonna have to start running, and
you have people looking at you.
Yeah, and you're behaving
and making
like
comments.
Exactly, you're behaving like an athlete, but you're fat. That's the opposite of it.
So you don't see yourself as an obese person trying to lose weight.
Yeah,
you are seeing yourself as an athlete.
As an athlete, yeah, that's getting in shape, and you're fat AF. But finally, pume and act like an athlete. We athlete who fuga every time extend at the same time, and they go run, and they drink a certain amount of water, and then they eat a certain type of food. You are going to have to do the very same thing, but you're overweight. But you have to believe ukuthi you are that. So the issue ukuthi before uphuma uba lento yiyo ijive ukuthi, or the problem is you have to act that way while you're not. We understand, and that's where most people do not leave that. They don't leave that space because uti, well, I'm too fat, so why am I running? What's the point?
Is it similar to the thing of, because I'm trying to expand more on getting out of a certain mind frame. Yeah. Should people leave because we say that, if you don't, the perception is that if you don't, there's a certain ceiling that you don't break out of.
We need to create other communities. Why I'm saying that, ikasi by design, just geographically, just by design. You see, you look at the Isoweto, how they put Joburg, and then they put the mine dumps, and then they put Abantu behind the mine dumps, right? So just on that basis, we are born uti Isoweto kahle is not a good place. Right? And then other ways is infrastructure corner, Ivumi, there's a lot, right? There's a lot of challenges. And the social issues corner, how ama taverns were specifically placed, right, by transit spots with Mabuya and Sevenzi number
by the bus stop,
yeah. So now by structure, vele inje logish is not good for you, right? But there are other places that are coming up, Manj. There are other Manyamagasi that are coming up, Flay Off, all of these other places that are coming up. And you see, Soteng is in those places. Now, here's an opportunity for us, Uguti. We must sort of close off those spaces where we say, Vusi, nami ngithenge indlu lana sisama time aphela kule kasi. You realize that we're in our 30s, but we are those timers. So the way thina sizoziphatha ngakhona siqala nje ngokuthi asifuni tavern, maybe as a street, just as a street. It's like we don't care ukuthi bathini kulesa street esingale esiphambili or esemuva. We don't care. thina sivumelana la just on this street ukuthi asifuni umuntu ozovula itavern siyala. So if umuntu yahamba uyo apply for riding, we're just gonna send those emails or whatever it is ukuthi we don't want a tavern in our street. Uyabona ukuthi siselokishini but manje we are building a new type of community. Lezi zinto lezo they can extend to izinto ezifana nokuthi if we want to close off the street we can. Boom gate we can do that. If we need to put together imali yokuthi kube nama patrollers, if we want to put together imali ukuthi kube nomuntu that comes and actually takes care of maybe the environment, if kunesiganga maybe behind kube nomuntu that comes
and these are men who have to be at the forefront. 100%
men. You understand? Because once you provide, once Tina as a timer that are coming up, right? And see, we must show the energy which is sinamandla. Remember maskula. I mean, I thought I'm a timer. It's normal for my timer to die at like 40, 45. Yeah. I thought it was normal. You know, can't you know it's not. It's
lifestyle.
Yeah, it's lifestyle. Because as soon as born like a lot of white people, it's like they're 90.
They're jogging.
They're jogging, yabo. Can't you know? It's because of this thing yama Sunday. Wuti intwana mazkhula zibona ukuthi Sunday kwenziwani. What's happening on Sunday? There's always some drunk person. Bekaphuza izola ngithi on Saturday. Is just strolling the street or wenza ngorabanye bayarasa amabhodlela aphukile phansi. There was bukune kishkish nje while intwana ilele yona mayivuka ku aftermath. And then he thinks ukuthi shuthi I'm a weekend, you know, he in normal. You understand? But if you were to take a child, ivuke, iyabona ukuthi ekaslabo akuna mataveni, you don't see those kind of people. Abantu abafana nalabo that come loud music, but they are stopped either by maybe like I don't know a policing guy or someone. But that's like a self-functioning community just of those houses. Intwana ekhula kulelo kasi lelo is not going to be the same than intwana ekhula kule the next kasi, because yona izokhula ngepride ukuthi inhleki nenza so la. And we're not talking like another hood, we're talking literally the other street. Uzomangala ukuthi why nivumela umuntu adlale music like in a loud you understand? Shuthi izobona ukuthi no man, shuthi ikaslam there's something a grand. He's going to have a sense of pride.
Sure.
Young child. Mina mankhula uMakheu I used to see uMakheu run every day. Bukhona elinye ithama phezulu bathi utawili nalo bukithama beligijima ama marathon nani. So mina mangikhula ngibona labantu laba I knew ukuthi kune option. But bebe boranyana, you know, because somehow
they're not popular.
Yeah, they're not popular. It's just like we are borega type of thing. Because laba ba right, laba abaza kuwe badakiwe. Yeah, boy,
they're entertaining.
Yeah, they're entertaining. They give you money, so you tend to like those ones. Unlike these straight ones that are. But maglibela kambi skati selebon. Right? Because manje Islamic sele wona lama time lawa that used to exercise bona laba that were, you know, very strict and blah blah. And another thing was growing up in an environment where there wasn't a father in the house. Kuti mina mangbona bengibona like ama timer
next door.
Yeah, timer next door.
Yeah.
And then basically you had like 12 or 15 fathers in the street, and then you could sort of see which lawyer puza, you know.
You could sample them.
You can sample, you can sample them with low grand, lawyer puza, laws that. So it's kind of. I'm sure I could have been a different person, and I grew up with my father in the house. But well, manje, whatever happened. I'm here. But what I learned was Gucci. Oh, okay. So guna matama so and guna matama so. Young told.
So then what becomes an issue is how do you take those influences and then the mechanism of constructing an identity from those influences? Okay, what should I take from that? What should I not take from that? That becomes the thing.
Yeah, it becomes a thing. And that's the identity nami. I had to break away from to put it in a way, right? I don't know if I did or not, but I realized Uchi, as I was growing up, I looked at my older brother and learned what he was doing, and I said, I'm gonna take that, I'm gonna leave that. And then and then okay, that man, that male, that teacher, that every time it was always male. Like I never even looked at women. There was just like women, they're there. But it was always male. I remember the teachers, I remember what they said, you know, and I remember what they did. So all of these things, I could tell in my life some of the decisions that I used to make. I'm making a decision like, yeah, Glazuspan, I remember he went through something like this, and then you make a decision based on that. And then you could see sometimes, you know, Magu, when you have a friend with an older brother, and then the older brother is successful. Let's say maybe he's on radio, or maybe he's on radio, or maybe he's a soccer player or whatnot. They tend to pursue that. They want to go.
They use that as a foundation, as a benchmark.
Exactly. So I used to see that and like, oh well, at least I have an option to be anything, because I don't have to like follow the footsteps of my brother, type of thing. You know.
And what Masishila. Thank you very much. The idea of identity and how it relates to spirituality is one that I think we take for granted. The main reason for this is because our very understanding of what identity is something that we take for granted itself. Let's start with the idea of us being South African. The Republic of South Africa, as we know it, was formed in May 31st, 1961. Before then, the region went through several iterations following the arrival of the European colonizers. For a long time, the British and the Dutch fought over the land and its resources. Through these battles and the losses and the wins, different entities began to take shape. For example, there was the Natalia Republic, which was a Boer republic. Then it became the colony of Natal after the British defeated the Afrikaners and took it over. Oh, by the way, the word Natal is Portuguese for Christmas because it was the Portuguese sailors who discovered it on a Christmas day. Then there was the Orange Free State, which was also a kind of a republic under the rule of the Afrikaners until the British defeated them and took it over. Then there was the Transvaal Republic, which was an independent Afrikaner republic until the British defeated them and took it over. There were also many battles of resistance from the native tribes like Amazulu, Amaxhosa and Basotho and such, but obviously most of the crucial ones were lost eventually. The country that we have today, the South Africa that we have today, is what the British and the Afrikaners decided to have. Or rather, this is the configuration that they believed worked for them. At a very basic level, the Republic of South Africa has very little to do with black people. It was never our choice. A border was put around us and we were told that now we were South Africans. It was like a group of people being forced into the back of a truck and two people kept fighting for who owns the truck and where it should go. Personally, I love science fiction, so let's explore some ideas. In a parallel universe, the Europeans never came, and Shaka's expansion was successful and all the people in Southern Africa became Amazulu. In another parallel universe, the Afrikaners defeated the British, and the British left. And today, we only have one official language in South Africa, and that is Afrikaans. In another universe, the Portuguese took over the entirety of Southern Africa. Each of these outcomes would have meant a very different identity for us as black people who live in this region. And none of these outcomes are inherently impossible. It's just that what happened and we got what we got. The idea of being South African as an identity is something that we actually don't have a historical, social, or even spiritual connection to. To be black and South African is what Black American writer W.E.B. Du Bois called having two souls. In his book, The Souls of Black Folk, he says, "One ever feels his two-ness, an American, a Negro, two souls, two thoughts, two unreconciled strivings, two warring ideals in one dark body, whose strength alone keeps it from being torn asunder." I cannot be Umxhosa, not entirely, and be South African. I cannot be Motswana, not entirely, and be South African at the same time. At some point, I have to leave fundamental aspects of these identities behind in order to fit into the functioning of the country. Whether be it my language, whether be it my beliefs, my practices, my rituals, my customs, at some point, in one way or another, I have to let go of some part of myself in order to be South African. What the British and the Afrikaners were fighting over was not just the land and resources, but they were fighting for their freedom not to leave out any aspects of their identity in order to function in this country. Not their language, not their customs, not their rituals, not their God. We as black people, we pride ourselves in our different cultural identities. And the architects of apartheid realized that this pride was the most powerful tool that they could use without getting their hands dirty. With each passing day, with each passing year, with each passing generation, we are becoming less and less of ourselves from a historical perspective, or less of the version of ourselves that we were raised to believe that we should be. Our languages, our practices, our customs, our rituals, there are fewer and fewer of those with each passing moment. There are two ways that we can look at this. One, this is an unmitigated disaster that will, in all likelihood, lead to us, black people, being no more than workers at the factory called South Africa, whose only highlight in life is drinking and grooving on weekends, with no sense of self and destined to drown in consumerism and debt. Or we can look at this as a natural process of evolution that human beings have been going through ever since we made the first stone tool. In this context, we become deliberate about what we are losing and what we are keeping. Maybe in the process of becoming less and less of ourselves in terms of our individual cultural identities, we become more and more of something. The reason you are listening to this podcast, the reason I created it in the first place, is that we are trying to figure out how to balance multiple cultural ideologies and multiple spiritual philosophies within a kind of a geographic identity. If apartheid turned culture into a weapon of division, the question then is it possible to turn it into a tool for bringing people together? And I don't think that the answer is a simple one. For one thing, cultural homogeny doesn't necessarily mean that a people is united behind an idea. White people in America, even though they have diverse ancestry, are largely a homogeneous group. There, the lines of division are along political views. Locally, you have countries like Lesotho and Swaziland where the divisions stem from social class. In order for cultural homogeny to work, it needs a plan. It needs a goal. Europe was united through its desire to dominate and steal resources. China has fashioned itself into a manufacturing behemoth. A big part of why African countries are so fragile is because our leaders really don't have a plan. There is no goal, and we are simply happy to just exist. Am I calling for the eradication of South Africa as a country? That would be childish and naive, because, and then what? In many ways, the changes that we need will take a very long time because we simply do not have the leadership that can command the scale of social movement that is needed in order to enact that change. Am I saying that we should have less cultural identities? Not necessarily, because that is just another genocide waiting to happen. What I am saying is that the change that we fear has already started happening. For me, not only do I come from a culturally mixed background, but I come from a blended family, from people who themselves come from a culturally mixed and blended family. What I am saying is that we either embrace the change and become intentional about it, or we let it destroy us. My name is Wasumzi Ngandi. Thank you very much for joining me yet another episode of The Journey Kwantu. I hope this episode has provoked some thoughts, and I'd be happy to hear them. I hope even in your personal lives you begin to tackle these questions and figure out answers for yourself. Other than that, thank you again. I wish you light, I wish you courage, and I wish you all the very best on your journey. Makwande.